As I left home for the Mile Zero ride, I was filled with excitement and expectation as what the weekend would hold. My friend John Weaver was coming down from the mountains to join up with me, and we were going to ride and meet some friends on our way to Savannah. Come along with us for the ride. After fueling up, we turned south on Highway 321 and headed toward the South Carolina line. I was filled with excitement and anticipation of what the weekend would hold for us as we left. I was excited to go down to reconnect some old friends and maybe make some new friends along the way. People often ask me why I ride the back roads so much instead of the interstate. Well, it's because you get to see so much of America that you don't see when you're ground pounding down on the interstate. Yeah, I could ground pound and make a little bit better time, but it's so much more relaxing and enjoyable just to go through and see America as you travel. It's not always possible to do this, but whenever you can, take a moment to relax, take in the sights, and see our country. So we made our way around Columbia using Interstate 20 and Interstate 26 and then reconnected with Highway 321 on the far side.
Guys, what a beautiful day the Lord has given us today. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Tim Marshburn and this channel is Poppa-D Rides. It's all about long distance motorcycle touring and all things motorcycle related. But today we are on the way down to meet with Wood Jr., Big Mike, and everybody else for the Mile Zero ride, which we're doing tomorrow, down to Homestead and then to Key West on Saturday. So meeting everybody tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. at Savannah Harley-Davidson. But on the way, I've got my buddy Johnny Weaver with me, and we are going to go down and see a couple of our former co-workers, actually our former bosses. Deb and Richard worked at Medic, both of them for over 30 years. Were instrumental in the foundation of the organization and as it grew. So they started there, at least Richard did, in 1978. And I think Deb came along there shortly after. But Deb was my supervisor for probably the first 8 or 9 years that I worked. Both of these people mentored me but Deb in particular saw something in me at a young age, and she nurtured that and developed me into a leader in that organization. So I'm so grateful for both of these folks, and I'm excited to see them. They recently got married, and they're living down in Ridgeland, South Carolina, which is where Richard is from. Actually, the airport there is named after Richard's father. His father was a caretaker of the regional airport there for years, and they named it now. It's the Claude Dean Regional Airport. So we're going to go down and visit with Richard and Deborah Dean today, have some lunch, and then we're headed on down to Savannah. So come along on the ride with us, guys, and I'll see you guys when we get a little bit further down the road.
As you continue down Highway 321 toward the low country of South Carolina, you go through such towns as North South Carolina and Denmark and Norway. You see a lot of log trucks along the way and some farmland. Just a great way to spend the afternoon as we headed down toward Ridgeland.
Back there, really coming out of the airport. Yeah, 2 trucks behind us.
So we headed to Deb and Richard's, and they took us out to eat some lunch, and then we toured around the town for a little bit before leaving.
GoPro? Yep, that's it's like a GoPro. It's instant 360, so it's taking 360 pictures, and then in editing, I can point it what I want it to look at.
Okay.
And then this is the GoPro here, and I've got it mic'd, so whenever I sync them together, I basically tap my chest 5 times. That allows me to sync the videos up. All the audio with me talking comes from this if I'm actually writing, and if that goes, that takes care of everything else. Guys, we'll see y'all later. That was cool to see Deb and Richard again. Man, such great people. All right, guys, we had a great lunch with Deb and Richard. Had a good time. Richard took us out to the airport, showed us his plane, which is a 1956 Piper Cub that he has putting new fabric on it. It was his father's plane, and he's redoing it, refurbishing it, which is pretty cool. And then he showed us around the airport and showed us a couple other aircraft. Hopefully the videos I took of that will come out in this video, and I'll include them right here.
Because that's the same year he bought this airplane. It's 1956 model Piper Tripacer. So, you see, I got the wings off of it. I pulled all the old fabric off of it, and been going through it and And
Well, this is what one looks like with no clothes on.
That's a naked airplane.
Yep. Anyway, so it's been going through and getting rid of corrosion and repriming and stuff. And that's the new fabric on that roll up there. So soon we'll, once everything gets the coat of primer on it, we'll start putting fabric on. You have to have a certified aircraft mechanic sign off on all your work. So I got a couple of them on the field here. You know, the first thing they said was take lots of pictures. So before I pulled off the first piece of fabric, I took pictures all around it, and I started pulling the fabric off and kept taking pictures. And anytime I would start to disassemble something as complex as this, I've got multiple pictures at it. And even though I take multiple pictures of it, I put this back together wrong 4 times, you know, because of that little plate. When you hold it up and look at it, it looks like it doesn't have any angle in it.
Right.
So I put it back on and realized that was wrong. Had to take that off and do it the other way. And I said, you know what, bolt probably should go down instead of up, because you put inspection ports in them so you can take that little plate off to look, make sure everything is okay. And then I realized that, well, if you point the bolt down, when you run this cable through, it'll establish like this over. So, and the gas tanks go in here, and so those are the straps that hold them down. So it's a major project, and you know, we're doing it one little piece at a time.
So that's the difference in a smart man and me. I took my hedge clippers apart to sharpen the blades, and I forgot to take pictures. They work, but I don't think I've got them back together right.
And also,
All that's fabric.
the doors are aluminum.
Oh, I can feel that now, yeah.
And of course, the engine cowl and all this piece.
So I guess that's, I mean, that helps the weight, having fabric.
It does. This is a 4-cylinder, 150 horsepower air-cooled Lycoming engine.
150 horsepower.
150. And this old bird will cruise at 135 miles an hour. Sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the range on it?
About 500 miles. It'd probably squeak 500 out of it.
Cool.
I would probably put it on the ground at 350 or 400. The old rule basically is this: is that if you've got a destination, you want to arrive at your destination with at least 30 minutes of fuel left on board in case something goes wrong. You got to divert.
I need to remember that for my motorcycle.
Well, that's actually
That's from the old?
Yeah,
Or new?
the process is that this is a fabric is much thinner than this. What gives it its thickness and heft is that you put a product they call dope on it, and you let that dry, and then you sand it smooth, and then you put another coat of dope and sand it smooth, and you do that 3 or 4 times, and then you paint it. But before you paint it, what you would do is when you put the fabric on it. This is rib stitching, so you get the fabric stretched. When you get it glued down, then you stitch around the ribs and then tie it, and that adds to the stability of the fabric. And then you put a piece of fabric tape over the top of that, and you can paint it. This is a new product here. This material comes already painted. So
Okay.
all that sanding and everything else, you still have to do the rib stitching, but you don't have to do that. And
So is this like this, and you just have to tie them all, or do you have something that actually sews it?
yeah, you've got
That'd be neat.
you do it by hand. You've got a 12-inch long curved needle, and that's the
Stitch.
that's the stitch.
And you just sew it
Yep.
by hand on it. Okay. So that's, you just.
Yeah, I was wondering how you want to. I had a thing in my mind that you're just tying it off.
That's
Like,
what
well, how you gonna get it closed once you get the clothes in? You're actually stitching it.
So we'll fully enclose it with the fabric. It'll be wrapped up, and the fabric will be glued down, and then the material shrinks +degrees, and that activates the glue. And once you get, and of course, then the fabric also shrinks. So you do,
shrink
Yeah.
shrink wrap.
yeah. So you pull it as tight as you can, you know, by hand whenever you're gluing it down, and then you heat it with a heat gun, and then you take a flat iron at a certain temperature and go over it, and it shrinks it and pulls it tight.
Now, are you going to have to do the entire body as well?
Yeah, we're planning on doing that. The wings were recovered in 1980, and the fuselage was done in 83. So the fuselage itself passed the test, but I know it's right around the corner for me. So if I don't completely lose my mind on this part of it, we'll go ahead and strip this down and finish it. I bought enough fabric to
I'm
do
going
all
to the
that.
ladies' room. I'll be right back.
Okay. But anyway, so this is a sample of what's out here on the field. Got airplanes that are older than this. Got some Piper Cubs and stuff that were built in the late 30s and the 40s.
And that's a 56 model.
56 model. It's a year younger than me. And I've told everybody I'm working on an old airplane. I said, let me correct that. I'm an old man working on an old airplane.
That's all right.
French. They built them to be 1965 model Fuga Magister. It's a CM-170. It's French made. The French built them to be a trainer jet for fighter pilots. So you know, it's got a top end of about 400 miles an hour. It's fully aerobatic. You can roll it, climb it, dive it, treat it like you would a high performance fighter jet. But this is what all the French fighter pilots, before they ever actually got into a combat aircraft, they would have flown this. Now some of the smaller countries, third world countries, actually took these and modified them and set them
Armored on them?
Yeah, armored them, and so they would carry bombs and stuff like that. But this was recently repainted. It was a purple color, and the guy had it, just hated the color, so he had it repainted in the original French Air Force colors. And this is the squadron numbers and stuff from the last squadron. I've had an opportunity to fly with him. And,
Oh, I bet that's fun, wasn't
yeah, he's a retired Marine Corps officer. Flew F-4 Phantoms and A-4 Skyhawks and F-18 Hornets and stuff. And he flew in Vietnam.
So we continued to tour the airport. Got to check out some planes that they're building for aerobatic shows. And they showed us a couple of motors that had the piston blown in them. Then they showed us Wood Junior's tires. And we prepared to head on down the road. It's a nice visit to the Claude Dean Regional Airport.
Right here. But Richard's father, Claude Dean, was the manager of that airport for over 40 years, from the mid-70s until his death a few years ago. He was the manager of the airport, and then Richard actually managed it for a couple of years thereafter until they got somebody else to take over it. The interesting thing is, as we were walking around, Richard told us the story of how his grandfather, so his father's father, actually they owned the land years ago. And I think he told me back in the 60s, they asked the county if they could take and plow the land and make it flat, grade it flat, and land some aircraft out there. So his family was instrumental in that airport even existing. So I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't get all of that captured in tape, but I wanted to say that here. And I wanted to say that I immensely appreciate both Richard and Deb for all they did for me over the years. And they're just great people. You won't find better folks on the planet. And when they say salt of the earth, those two are the salt of the earth as far as I'm concerned. Anyhow, I'll get teary out if I keep talking. So we're going to go down to the Waving Girl statue in Savannah and take a picture for one of my pictures. Harley has 10 rides for 2022, and that's one of the rides. So we're going there now. So let's head on down there. All right, guys, there's downtown Savannah on the other side of the river. So let's go over here and see if we can find this statue. And the engineering had to go into this bridge. First time I've ever been across that bridge. I've seen it before, but I've never gone across it. This Thunderbird Inn here to the right, my wife and I have stayed there before. It's an old Art Deco hotel. Pretty cool place to stay. As their sign says, they define groovy. But it's still decked out like it was, I guess, in the 50s. And when you check in, you get a moon pie and an RC.
Is that where you're going?
Yeah, that way. Going to River Street, I looked at it on the map last night, and it's in here. That's the first time I've been across that bridge.
I don't ever remember that bridge. Of course, it's been a long time.
Robin and I stayed there on our, I think, 15th or 20th wedding anniversary. We stayed in Savannah. Huh? The Thunderbird. It's an old retro hotel. Everything's like vinyl. When you check in, you get a moon pie and 2 RCs in your room. And you can walk to everything downtown. We stayed there and we went to Paula Dean's restaurant, Lady and Sons, in town, and ate.
Damn school bus.
Imagine that, seeing a school bus. Imagine 2 bus drivers having to stop for a school bus.
Yeah, I was thinking that when we were passing those this morning.
These apartments are like Nesbitt Courts in Wilmington, where my mother lived when she was a child. And then I lived in Houston Moore, like, you remember Piedmont Courts? Houston Moore looked just like Piedmont Courts. That's why, until I was about 8 years old, that's where we lived. No, but I think the whole neighborhood rides that bus. I got one route I run, I pick up 2 stops and the bus fills up. Yeah. 2 apartment complexes in town.
Our bus fills 30, has 32 seats. I had 56 people on it the other day. All I can do.
So my family tells me no matter where I go, I can find the hood. I lived in the hood, I worked in the hood. We've been all over the country. I wound up going in the hood no matter where I go. That's all right. Can you fit through that hole? Howdy, man. Thank you. Thank you, man. Well, guys, the battery in the Insta360 died, so when it gets clear, we're going to turn left. Thank you. Cobblestones. All right, Chris Hutter, I found cobblestones.
This cobblestone ramp is much steeper than it looks. It also has like a V formation, so the cobblestones are higher on the outside than they are the center. I was definitely using my slow speed skills, keeping it loaded as I went down this hill, using some power to the rear wheel while using my brake to keep me in check. I was just praying these people at the bottom who were not paying attention to me at all to get out of the way before I had to put my foot down. Once we got clear all those folks, we headed on down through the Waving Girl Staute to take my picture for the Hog Challenge coin. With our mission complete, we made it on over to the hotel for the evening. Been a great day of riding. I really enjoyed spending my time with John. He's not going to ride down to Key West with us. He just came down to ride today with me to Savannah and visit with our friends Richard and Deb. Such a blessing to be able to see them and spend a little bit of time with them today. Now let's go over to the hotel, get checked in, and get some rest before we head down to Key West tomorrow. Okay guys, I'm going to wrap the video up here. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you like what you saw and enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that notification bell so you're aware of whenever I put up new content. And come back and ride with me again sometime. Hope to catch you guys on the next ride.
You win the snow race, won't you? I couldn't figure out where the hell we was going. I thought we was in Savannah back there.